And here he is, Michael Unbroken. How are you doing?
I'm very well, my friend. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. It's a Saturday night and the feeling's right. But thank you so much for coming on because I know you have a story and a half to share with us. And, as this show is for sexual abuse survivors, I think it's an important topic of discussion for male survivors as well as female survivors. And I'm seeing a lot more male survivors come out of the woodwork now. So I think, it's a great time to be raising that awareness. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course, it's my pleasure. And I think any time is a great time to be talking about things that people are afraid to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, one of the main reasons why people aren't speaking up is because they just feel all alone, that they feel like um, sometimes they even blame themselves. There's a lot of shame and guilt associated with what's happened to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the unfortunate thing that comes probably more so from the abusers than us as the people who have been hurt.
Mm,
Because it's a tactic of control, and then there's all the other parts of the human psyche that start to kick in on the backside of that, and suddenly you're looking at your life and it's upside down. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate that this is a conversation that we even have to have, but I'm also very proud of us for being willing to step in and have that conversation.
absolutely. And that's why you're here today to obviously give us your story and also to inspire my listeners and viewers, if they're currently stuck and require a way out.
Yeah, I think that we all have, I do believe this. I think we all have the ability to create massive transformation in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
but it only comes from this place where we're willing to give ourselves permission to be successful. And that's
Mm,
one of the most difficult things that we have in life, because for many of us, I mean, we come from these backgrounds in which we're told, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not capable enough. And then you
yeah.
compile that and parlay that with just life. And suddenly you look at the way I looked at my life over a decade ago, and I was just at like rock bottom. So, it's my
Yeah.
pleasure to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you. So it'll be great for you to share your story and also, how you actually transformed from being the victim to the victor, which is exactly what the show is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was 4 years old, my mother, who was a drug addict and alcoholic, she actually cut off my right index finger. And
Oh,
people always go, well, how could your mother do that? And
wow.
it's because it was a repeat of generational trauma, right? It
Okay.
was the abuse begetting abuse begetting abuse. And, it's that thing, it's that cycle that happens.
Yeah.
And my stepfather was super abusive, like the kind of guy you pray is never your stepfather. I mean, he would kick the shit out of my brothers and I. He put me in the hospital, like the whole nine,
Wow.
right? Just the absolute
Okay.
horror story. And in
Wow.
this, we grew up in the Mormon church, and so Sunday was the only time where like there was any like semblance of kindness or peace around me. And in that, by the time that I was 8 years old, we started getting deep into poverty, and we were getting evicted from our home. I lived with over 30 different families over the next few years, getting bounced
Wow.
place to place to place. And it was in that where I was molested by one of the mothers at one of the families that I was with. And at the time, I didn't really understand it. Obviously, I'm like 9 years old. I have no idea what's really going on. But I told my mother, and she basically told me that didn't happen. Never tell anyone ever. Right.
Wow.
And like, I
Okay.
understand why she would do that, because,
Mm.
the last thing that for her, she would want to do is interrupt the process of being able to dump her kids off on other people.
Yeah.
And look, it is what it is. Right. So by the time
Mm-hmm.
I'm 12 years old, my grandmother, she adopts me, which is both a really amazing thing and a really shitty thing. I'm biracial. I'm black and white. I'm West African, Nigerian, and
Oh yeah.
Irish. And my grandmother is a super racist old white lady from a
Oh,
town in middle America, Tennessee, you've never heard of.
goodness.
So
Wow.
now it's like insert identity crisis. And
Yeah.
this is a really strange next few years for me, because I'm going to a predominantly minority high school, and like none of my friends are allowed to come inside of my house. So if that tells you anything. And so I'm 12 years old. I get high for the first time. I get drunk at 13. By 15, I'm expelled from school for selling drugs. I was breaking into houses, stealing cars, running with guns, hurting people, right? I was just trying to have community with my best friends. And we were doing all these things because that's what, you know, our brothers above us were doing, and our friends above us, and looking at and measuring them.
Yeah.
I finally got into a last chance program in high school, and they were like, you know, we'll give you this opportunity to get your shit together. I didn't. And I did not graduate high school on time. And they finally just literally handed me the diploma, and you're like, you just got to get out of here. We don't know what to do with you. Good luck in the world. And my only thought growing up, you know, I think people have dreams when they're little kids. I want to be fucking astronaut or doctor, whatever it is, right? I didn't have that. The only thing I dreamed about as a little kid was don't die. And so when I made it to 18 years old, heading into 19, I'm in this place where I finally have graduated high school, and I'm trying to figure out like what's next. And I couldn't get into the military, which was my out. That was my plan A, B, C, D, E. That was the only thing I was going to do because I hurt my knee. And because I hurt my knee so badly, I could not pass the physical exam, even though I had passed the aptitude test and I could do any job I wanted in the military. So now I was really in trouble. And I made this choice. I said, by the time I'm 21, I want to make $100,000 a year legally. And that was a sign to me because I looked at life as the solution for poverty. It's got to be money. The solution for abuse, it's got to be money. And I knew I needed to do it legally because I have family who's in prison for life. I've been in handcuffs. And as of today, my 3 childhood best friends have been murdered. Like I knew, like if I stayed down the path I was going down, it was going to be really, really bad news for me. And so I made this decision. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I made this decision, and I went into this path of trying to figure out how you get to $100,000 a year legally. Well, sure enough, I end up doing it. And on my 21st birthday, I cashed one of my first checks for 5 figures. And that thing that happens to people when they get money for the first time happened to me. And it destroyed my life. And I found myself at 350 pounds. I don't know what that transfers over to. Smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, drinking myself to sleep, cheating on my girlfriend, putting myself in precarious sexual positions, destroying my life outwardly. And that's when I put a gun in my mouth. I was just done. I was like, I thought money was supposed to fix all this, and it didn't. It only made my life worse. And the next day I'm laying in bed. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. Keep in mind, I'm 350 pounds. I'm smoking a joint, eating chocolate cake, and watching the CrossFit games. Wow. If that's not rock bottom, I don't know what is. And I went into the bathroom, and I was looking at myself in the mirror. And I remember being 8 years old, and the water company coming and turning our water off. That's how poor we were. And I grew up in America, in Indianapolis, in a major city, and they turned our water off. But they would turn off our heat in the winter and our electricity in the summer, and we would get evicted all the time. But this one particular day, I went in the backyard and I grabbed this little blue bucket, and I walked across the street to our neighbor's house, and I turned on the spigot on the side of their house. And for the first time in my life, I stole water. And I was like, when I'm a grown up, like this is not going to be my life. And it wasn't my life in terms of finances, but I was still that hurt, lost little boy. And as I stood there looking in the mirror, having this memory, I asked myself, what are you willing to do to have the life that you want to have? And the words, no excuses, just results, like started reverberating through my body. And what that meant in that moment was I'm no longer going to negotiate with myself. And that started this process that 11 years later has led me to where I'm having this conversation with you. And so in that, there was therapy, group therapy, men's group therapy, trauma therapy, EMD, CBT, like
Wow.
A, B, C, D, E, F, like all the acronyms, right?
Yeah.
It was coaching, it was mentorship, it was reading the books, going to the conferences, doing personal
Yeah.
development. And then it turned into education, where as of today, I have over 30 trauma-informed certifications and certificates, because I decided,
Wow.
like, I've got to take care of myself. I got to figure out what the hell is going on. And now
Yeah.
today, it's really fascinating to me. I've written a #1 best-selling book. I've published multiple books. I'm an award-winning speaker. I've got a top podcast. I've traveled the world speaking and coaching and worked with thousands and thousands of people.
Mm.
And it's all about one thing. Like, can we figure out how to overcome? Can we become the hero of our own story?
Mm. Absolutely. And so how old were you when you did hit rock bottom?
I was like, well, like, honestly, like, when I think about it, I love that no one's ever asked me that question. When I think about it, I'm like, rock bottom was basically fucking 14 years old till 25 and a half.
Ooh,
Right.
wow.
Because
Yeah.
what is rock bottom, right? And this is my definition. And I think everyone has to figure this out for themselves, or hopefully
Mm.
not, actually. And it
Yeah.
was very much like, how can I destroy my life today?
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It was self-sabotage. It was putting myself in the wrong situations, being around the wrong people, like looking at everything that I could do to sabotage myself, to destroy the things I'd worked so hard for,
Yeah.
to push away love, to push away community, to ostracize myself, to go into drugs and alcohol and sex and all of those things as a coping mechanism for
Yeah.
not dealing with the things I needed to deal with. And so, yeah, I mean, like, my rock bottom was like over a decade, because it
Yeah.
just felt like that's what life was, until I
Right.
understood that that wasn't what life had to be.
Absolutely. That's a lot of trauma. That's years of trauma. And how long would you say it took you to be where you are today?
Every single day from that moment of looking in the
Really?
mirror. Right. And
Okay.
we're talking
Yeah.
about over 11 years, almost 12 years. And
Mm.
I'll never, this is what I teach my clients all the time. I'm like, the thing that you have to understand is no one book, no coaching, no fucking program is going to just
Yeah.
fix all this.
No.
You're going to do this for the rest of your life. Right.
Yeah.
And so I still have coaches. I still go to therapy. I still read the books. I still go to the conferences.
Mm.
And I've accepted that that's the reality for me. And
Yeah.
so, are there pivotal moments in that in which massive change happens? Sure, of course, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
it's always a one day at a time. Take a step, move forward,
Mm.
take a step, make a mistake, fall back, do the thing I said I'd never do again, pick myself up, go, okay, great. How did I get into that situation? Rebuild, go forward, rinse and repeat for the next, I don't know, hopefully I'll get 70 more years out of this thing. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's a process, it's a game, it's life.
Yeah, and it is, and because trauma is such a huge topic for me as well. I'm currently doing a level 7 in trauma and PTSD, and wow, it's just studying it. It's so triggering because it just brings up so much, because you're just learning so much about how the mind and the body's all connected. And it was only recently I learned that trauma is actually stored in the body, because I just thought it was all just to do with mental health before. And I think you're right, it's knowledge is going to help us to put us on the path that we need to be on. And it's also not giving up, because what I'm finding is that trauma just comes when you least expect it. It's within, like, situations at work or in relationships. Suddenly you find that you're acting differently. Yes. So yeah, suddenly you find that you're acting differently, and that you're you take things differently as well, and that you just get triggered over the silliest things, and we don't even realize that that's all trauma related.
Yeah. And that's why it's important to have education, right?
Yeah.
That's what I tell people all the time. Like, your greatest tool in this process is education, is learning, is
Yeah.
getting the books, listening to the podcast, going to the conferences, getting educated, because you have to understand that what is happening is a biological experience.
Mm-hmm.
You're literally having a chemical induced experience. Your brain is releasing these chemicals cortisol, right, is a great precursor to getting into this place where your amygdala starts to misfire and you're all of a sudden like all over the place because you're in fight or flight, because you're in the sympathetic nervous system, because that
Yes.
one thing happened in passing so quickly that normal people wouldn't notice it. But you've been
Yeah.
programmed since you were 3 years old to be hyper vigilant because it's a survival mechanism built in
Mm.
to the structure of the human capacity to make sure that you do one thing, and that is to live. And so
Yeah.
when you understand that, when you can look at the things and know what triggers you, i.e., I was walking down the street and I saw this thing that reminded me of that thing that led to this place where my body freaked out because it's an autonomic response to when that thing happened to me 25 years ago. I had to go into fight or flight to protect myself. When
Mm.
you understand that, then you start to take control over your life. And that's where people get missed on the practicality of healing trauma, because like going and talking to therapists is great, like fine, I
Mm.
think everyone should do that, I still do. But I think if you really want to one up this, if you really want to be able to take control over your life, you've got to understand the biological responses that occur when certain stimuli enter your environment that lead
Mm.
you to this place where you are in this position of going into the sympathetic nervous system as a defensive mechanism for survival.
Wow, that is just amazing. You just explained that so well, because sometimes it's so difficult to explain that in layman's terms about the amygdala and sympathetic nervous system, because it's all linked, when it comes to trauma. I know that, if you do have trauma, your body will have a lot of nervous energy. And obviously that's linked to the fight or flight response. So I think yeah, you're right. I think body healing, we need to probably do more of that. Yeah, therapy is great. EMDR, as you've done already, and the ones that I'm studying are the prolonged exposure therapy, and then the IRRT acronyms again. So how about body therapy? What would you recommend for that?
Yeah. So look, I'm not going to recommend anything because I'm not a doctor. But what I will tell you is what I did. And so I'm not trying to get sued. What I did was I looked at like my body, like, okay, so to your point, yes, let's talk about this for a moment. Your body does store trauma, right? It does keep that inwardly. Think about it like this. If you have all these experiences that you never talk about, that you never do anything about, and they're trapped within you, you're just burying them deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more
Mm,
that you do that, the more that they want to come out, right?
yeah.
I was in this position where I was like 28, 29 years old, having 5 panic attacks a day, like literally
Wow.
on the ground, like, oh my God, what's happening? Now, I was on the backside of this journey, right? I was starting to go through the process of healing and going to therapy, but I was just now like touching the surface of all of the darkness. Think about this. In 3 minutes, you know
Mm,
more about me than people who knew me for 28 years, 29 years,
mm,
30 years, right? And so
yeah.
that stuff wants to escape, right? Now,
Mm,
you can read a phenomenal book about the psychosomatic response of all this is called Healing Back Pain by John Sarno. You can also read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. You can also
yeah.
read Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. You can read all these books, and they all kind of point to this idea that when you start to expose all of
Mm,
the stress that you keep within yourself from these experiences, you'll notice your body starts to change. Oh,
yeah.
okay. Suddenly I don't have that weird pain. My anxiety is going away. I don't have
Mm,
panic attacks every day. And that became my experience. Now,
okay.
coupled with, to your question, to create context around that, I
Mhm.
have found for myself that because, all right, so think about it like this. Growing up in a cortisol state during your developmental years means that you're constantly in this pace of fight or flight. Well, when
Mm,
you're always in fight or flight in the sympathetic nervous system, well, you don't really have the opportunity, except in rare occasions, to be in the parasympathetic nervous system,
mm,
which is the rest and recovery and digest system of the body, right?
yeah.
This typically normally happens during sleep. That's where you'll get into REM. Your body will process memories, put them where they need to go. You will wake up refreshed and revived. For
Yeah.
most people who are in a traumatic household growing up, you cannot
Mm,
get into the parasympathetic nervous system because you're always on high alert. I
okay.
from my experience, the worst and most terrifying part of my day was knowing I had to go home. Nothing was scarier. So how do you get into a parasympathetic nervous system, rest, digest, recover, if you're always in the most terrifying position, your own home? Now think about that. For people who have survived trauma, and their home is the most dangerous place for them to be. They never get to this place where they can rest and recover. The body is always hypervigilant, super stressed out, always tense. Now think about how that impacts your life. Okay. And you're in this position where you're in pain and you're in suffering and it hurts. My experience with healing my physical body came with getting serious about exercise, taking care of myself, diet, like discovering what foods I should and could and shouldn't eat, how to nourish myself, going to things like getting acupuncture and yoga, and doing things like deep tissue massage and myofascial release and things of that nature. And all of those things played a pivotal role. Like, I mean, I think to think that your body is somehow separate of your mind is awfully dismissive. They go hand in hand.
Absolutely. And that's why, yoga practices that really help to connect the mind and body. And, I'm a great lover of Kundalini yoga because I feel like there's a lot of trauma release techniques that they do in Kundalini yoga. And so just obviously, talking about trauma and the PTSD, because I see a lot of people in this day and age, and that they're obviously getting triggered, but they're just not even aware that anything's going on inside them. They're not even aware that they might have been abused as a child. And I know a lot of the times it can take decades for somebody to understand what actually happened to them. So was it the same with you when you were really young? Did you kind of remember everything that happened to you?
No, I remembered everything. One of the really interesting things that I've come to understand about the way that different people process trauma is that for some, like, it becomes a blank spot. They can't pull that memory. They never remember it. For others, like myself, I remember everything. Wow. And the hard part about remembering everything is that. And so, like, one of the things that was interesting, like growing up, I knew something was wrong in my house. I knew something wasn't right. I knew something was off. But it was just my home. I thought that that's just what it was. And so I was able to tap into most of the experiences of my childhood once I got serious into this healing journey, because they were always kind of right there on the surface.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess the whole perspective, when it comes to what happened to you, it boils down to self-awareness, right? This is why self-awareness is so important in this day and age.
Yeah, I think self-awareness plays a big role, but I also think that the way that you get to self-awareness in a really practical way is that you have to have somebody else to bounce these things off of. You have to have somebody to mirror this so that you can create an understanding of it. Because I think that when you're trying to do this all on your own and you're trying to figure it out, like, it's much more difficult. And when you have the ability to parlay with someone, it really helps you really expedite making meaning of where you are and who you are in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you mentioned that as well, just the fact that in order to heal trauma, it's about building a team and connecting with others. I know you're a big firm believer of that.
Yeah, 100%. Because, like, think about this. I don't know anyone who's ever done anything great alone. If you want to create massive transformation in your life, you're going to have team, right?
Yeah.
And there's an acronym in that too: time, effort, energy, money. Like, you're going to have to get involved. You're going to have to take control of your life. You're going to have to put yourself in the rooms with the people who can help you go to what's next in your life. Because the truth is, like, you can try to do this alone all day long. And I'm not saying some people don't succeed, because I'm sure they do, but everyone that I know who's really succeeded in creating transformation in their life, they've been a part of a group. They've been a part of a team, a community.
And also it's the power of having a mentor as well, or a few mentors. Again, a lot of this gets dismissed, where people say, oh, I don't need a mentor. I don't need a coach. I'll just read a book. I'll be fine. But yeah.
Yeah, well, but look, I'll say this because I do think books are mentors to an
Okay.
extent. I mean, that's why I'll read 70 books this year. I try to every
Wow.
single year because I'm always trying to learn. But like realistically, the most like profound growth I've had is like being in direct human connection with people who are where I want to go. And
Okay.
you got to invest to get there, like you really do. Like
Yeah,
that's the truth about it, right? And
it
people are
is.
like, why would I spend money on a life coach? Well, why wouldn't you? Why would you spend money on stuff that doesn't serve you? Why would
Yeah.
you spend money on going to the bar or watching Netflix all night or playing video games? Why would you
Yeah.
invest in that but not in your life? And I think that's one of the
Mm,
really weird things that you have to come to understand about this experience is that every one of the decisions that you're making impact everything that's going to happen to you.
does. Yeah. And that's one of Tony Robbins' quotes. He says, it's in your moments of your decision that your destiny is shaped. I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that's true.
Wow. So let's talk about obviously the fact you're an author now and you're also an entrepreneur. How did you come to succeed in life so gracefully?
Yeah, well, there's no grace in it. It's like falling down a mountain and then dragging yourself back up. There's no grace in any of this. I think anyone who's doing it gracefully is not working hard enough. They're not
Oh,
trying, they're not taking a big enough risk. You know what I'm
like
saying?
that. Yeah.
I've been an entrepreneur really my whole life. And I've also been a writer my whole life. I would
Mm,
call myself a writer before I would call myself a coach or a speaker or podcast guy, whatever. I'm a
okay.
writer first. And so I always knew I was going to write a book. And now I've written a couple and I'll write as many as I can before I die. And being an entrepreneur is, I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
And so to like, really, no, seriously, I don't like being told what to do. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that doesn't exist in my life, but to go and work at a job that I hate all day, which I've done. I worked in corporate America in a Fortune 10 company. Doesn't get much more controlled than that. Like we were so
No.
micromanaged in that company that
Wow.
they scheduled our bathroom breaks. And this is at a company, like a giant $1 billion company. And
Wow.
and I
Okay.
was like, I don't want to do this. Right. And so I think the greatest thing in entrepreneurship is very simply living life on your terms. And it's a
Yeah,
really beautiful experience.
that is absolutely. And I know that, you talk about leadership as well, and the fact that, it is important to be vulnerable in order to be a leader. And that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's actually a strength.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing we have to come to recognize is, I mean, even you right now having this conversation, having this podcast, you're being a leader, but you're being a leader through being vulnerable enough to have the parlay. And that's the thing I want people to understand is, if you want to be a leader, you've got to be vulnerable because A,
Yeah.
people see through bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And B, like people want to connect. Like I only
Yeah.
want to connect with people who are keeping it real. If you're out here like creating a farce for the sake of
Yeah.
like trying to spread a message, quote unquote, I'm going to see
Yeah.
that. I'm going to know your truth. And so, when I look at the leaders in my life, my mentors, the people I look up to, like they're keeping it real. And I try
Yeah.
to honor that in my journey. And I think that anyone who wants to be in a leadership role or position or impact the world in a practical and powerful way, they've got to be willing to do the same.
I love that. Yeah. So how, like, let's just say somebody is a bit frightened, but yet, they want to be a leader. What would you recommend that they do?
Yeah. I mean, you got to be willing to face your fear. That's the truth about it. And I face every single day when I write down my journal, I look at like the rules of my life. And number one is face fear.
Okay.
If you
Yeah.
don't, nothing's going to change. Because on the other side of that hard, difficult, scary decision, that's where life is. And so
Yeah.
you can be comfortable in this place where you are right now and go to bed that night wishing, or
Okay.
you can act. And when you
Yeah.
act, when you make a decision, your life will be different. And look, and if you're worried about people judging you, I'll tell you a secret. They already are. So you might as well go and do what you want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Show them what you're made of. And yeah. And it's also important to put yourself in out of your comfort zone. Well, I try and do that daily through different avenues. It used to be the cold showers, but in the winter that's a bit difficult here now.
That's all the more reason to do it.
I'm still kind of in my comfort zone. Yeah. What kind of stuff do you do for yourself and also for self-care? I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, my self-care is everything. My first 90 minutes to 2 hours of my day are all about me.
Yeah.
I don't check emails. I don't get on Instagram. I don't look at social media.
Okay.
This is where I read. This is where I conceptualize my future, where I meditate, where I visualize, where I go to the gym, where I write in my journal. Like
Wow.
those first couple hours a day are everything, right? And people always go, well, I don't have time. Yeah, you do. Wake up. Get up.
Wake up. Yeah. Exactly.
Get out of bed.
Yeah.
Right? Go to bed earlier. Wake up. People like I have a client right now. They dramatically changed their life. It's amazing.
Wow.
When we first started working together, like they were so far removed from where they are today. And I one day I said, why can't you create time for yourself? And they go, well, because I got kids and I work this job and now I'm doing coaching. It takes up time. And I said, how many hours a week do you watch television? And that was a really interesting wake-up call for them.
Wow.
Because we went through it, like literally I said, day by day by day, let's talk about this. They were spending 40 hours a week watching television.
Wow. What?
Now 4, right? The average person spends 28 hours a week watching television.
No. When?
They don't have time.
Do they not work?
You watch 3 hours of Netflix at night. You watch 6 hours of the game on Sunday. Like you got time. You just had to make a decision. Yeah. And so, that's why I'm able to read 70 books a year. That's why I'm able to do all the things I do. And I watch TV. Hell yeah, I do. Like I love it. Like I love cartoons and anime and documentaries and, getting up on the couch with some popcorn and watching a movie. But it literally takes me like 4 days to watch a movie. Right. So I give myself a small portion of time, so I can connect with the people in my life, so I can spend my time doing something important. Because when you die, you're never going to be like, oh, I wish I watched that episode of Friends for the 7th time.
It's so true. It eats away in the most kind of important hours of every day. So absolutely, I think it's about having that coach and actually planning your schedule and what you're doing. Also, I say it about food as well. It's so important to have like a food diary so that we know exactly what we're intaking. Because again, when it comes to trauma, food can trigger that as well. Food really affects our mental health. I only heard recently about gluten actually being associated with low moods.
Yeah, 100%. Alcohol, sugar, all of those things. Now, look, I'm not saying don't enjoy your life, but if you feel it negatively impacting you, you might want to consider why you're putting it in your body. And for some people, it's just habitual. We're conditioned to it. Yeah. And I think that you have to recognize that and understand it. I think also, and this is a really interesting part of the conversation that not enough people talk about, but there is a certain aspect that I contemplate, whereas if you're putting food into your body that isn't taking care of yourself, are you really doing self-care?
Yeah, exactly. That is a good question, which everybody needs to ask themselves. How about learning to love ourselves? Where does that start?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's the question, right? That's the $1 million question. That's the magic. That's the everything. And I'm going to tell you from my experience how I think you get there.
Okay.
I believe this. I truly do. The only way you're going to get to the position in your life where you love yourself is that you're going to have to do difficult things. You're going to have to do things that are instinctual to you about what it is that you feel like you should be doing. You're going to have to stop doing things that you don't want to do because it pleases other people. You're going to have to push yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You're going to have to get into this place where you create the person that you believe you're capable of being. Like I tell people all the time, like the Michael sitting here in front of you today, and that's not to be crass using myself in the third person, is a realization of the idea of the person I thought I could be. And the
Right.
person that I'm going to be in 25 years will be completely different than the person I am today. And
Yeah.
that's because I'm willing to step through the difficulty of creating myself.
Mm.
And that's what life is. Like, that's the secret. Like, that's the thing. You
Mm.
want to love yourself, then do the shit that you know you need to do to take care of yourself. Stop
Yeah.
making excuses. Stop negotiating with yourself.
Mm.
Start doing the things that you know you need to do. Because if
Yeah.
it's keeping you awake at night, you're lying to yourself.
That is a big test when it comes to comfort zones. I think, yeah, absolutely. We need to, again, it's about reflecting, writing things down that you want to achieve in your life, and then just finding ways to get there, hire a coach or, get on support groups. Because I know that you're doing quite a lot of support at the moment, which I'd love you to share with us because you've got some Facebook groups. And also, I'd like to learn more about your books.
Yeah, of course. And I do think support plays a huge role in it. I do a group coaching program that we kick up every 6 weeks. It's a 6 week daily program. And it's at coaching.thinkunbroken.com. And the Think Unbroken 6 week coaching program, I built into an app. So you don't have any excuses, because I know you got your phone on you.
Yeah.
And so you're able to go and do the program every single day. It's a check-in, it's a journal, it's a goal setting. It's me diving into the practical concepts like what we're talking about today, but at scale.
Nice.
And it's really about taking your opportunity every single day to live life on your terms through
Right.
education, the very thing we're talking about. And that's available again if you go to coaching.thinkunbroken.com. And the
Mm.
books, like, here's what I think is interesting. The books are available on Amazon and all the places, but you can get them from the library for free.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
that still exists. I don't, like, I
Library.
don't pay all this. Like,
Yeah.
go to the library. It's fine. It's free. I still have a library. I swear to you, I would say 90% of my books come from the library.
No,
Why am I going to sit
serious.
here and pay for something that I can get that I'm already paying taxes for? Right? Go leverage the tool, right? And
Oh my
so,
goodness. Yeah, you're breath of fresh air. I'm so glad you're saying this. So everyone
yeah,
listen, libraries are still out there.
yeah, they are. They're digital too. I have a digital library on my phone. I have a digital library
Oh,
card. I can get any book in the world, most any
oh
book
my
in the
goodness.
world, right? And it
Perfect.
doesn't cost anything because
Yeah.
I'm already paying taxes for it. So I guess it costs taxes, but still, like, that's my point. Like, people are
Yeah.
always looking for excuses. I don't have
Yeah.
$9 for a book. You don't need $9 for a book.
You
You need to go to the damn
don't.
library.
Yeah,
Stop making
exactly.
excuses.
This is it. And I guess that proves the fact that, when it comes to writing books and authors, a lot of the time we're not doing it for the money, are we? We're doing it because we've got a message that we want to share with people.
Yeah, I don't do anything for money. Like, what is
Mm,
money gonna do?
mm,
Money doesn't, I mean, I think about this. Like, money is utility. You can't change
mm.
the world without it. I definitely plan on being a multimillionaire in my lifetime, because let me tell you the truth about money. A $50 donation is great, but that's
Yeah.
not changing anything. I'm sorry, that's
No.
the truth. Like, it really is. And people are like,
Yeah.
but a $50 million donation?
It's just, yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, no, that's true. And I guess, when it comes to donating money, a lot of the times, unless you're out there delivering the money to the people that need it, we don't know where it goes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. Just like some hard truths coming out here today. And so, what motivated you to write your books?
Um, because they're the books that I needed. I
Okay.
think everyone who writes books would agree with that. Like,
Yeah.
from Stephen King to whomever, will all agree. Like, we write the book that we want to write because it's
Yeah,
the book that we want to read.
it is. Yeah.
And I wrote Think Unbroken initially to be a practical guide. So it's
Yeah.
broken down into part journal, part exercise, part
Oh,
workbook.
nice.
It's not about me. It's not
Brilliant.
about me. It's about this program. It's about coaching. It's about all the things that we're talking about right now.
Excellent. And you've also got a self-love course. I know that you've got is it an offer on at the moment?
Yeah, so the best thing you can do right now, there are things changing on the websites and structures and stuff. Go to coaching.thinkunbroken.com because all that stuff is there.
Excellent. Oh, thank you so much. Wow, that's amazing. So you have been amazing. And I think one of your kind of main logos is become the hero of your own story. I love that. And it is. And I think that's a message we need to be sharing with people.
Well, if you don't do it, who's going to?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. You have been amazing. And you've got so much knowledge that you're sharing out there and valuing so many lives. And yeah, I really appreciate your time. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed this show. And please do get in contact with Michael and visit his website. If you want to read his books and go to the library, no need to purchase them on Amazon. That's come from the horse's mouth. And again, if you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask myself or Michael. And again, it's been a pleasure serving, and it's been a pleasure meeting Michael on this amazing episode. Thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting with you again. Thank you, everyone. See you in the next episode.